Welcome back, everyone. I am so glad you're here for today's explainer because we're going to unpack an absolutely massive document in American history. We're talking about George Washington's farewell address. It's the blueprint that laid the groundwork for how the U.S. actually operates, and honestly, its lessons hit just as hard today as they did over 200 years ago.
So, imagine you're tasked with something completely unprecedented. How in the world do you say goodbye to a whole nation? Picture the sheer weight of that. Being the very first president, guiding this brand new, fragile country through literal war and peace, and then just deciding to hand all that immense power right back to the citizens. That's exactly where Washington was in 1796. He knew the Republic was on shaky ground, and he desperately wanted to leave behind a sort of survival guide for us.
Here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. First, Washington's final goodbye. Second, his 3 timeless national warnings. Third, analyzing the primary source. Fourth, biblical virtues in action. And finally, education powered by morality. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, Washington's final goodbye. You know, what's really fascinating here is that Washington didn't stand up at some grand podium and read this aloud to a cheering crowd. Not at all. It was actually published as an open letter in the newspapers in 1796. It was literally a written guide meant to help the nation figure out how to survive after he was gone. And the tone? Well, it wasn't a commanding general barking orders. It was incredibly fatherly, super cautious, and just deeply practical. He was talking directed to the people, passing the baton along with all his hard-earned wisdom.
Moving on to Section 2, 3 timeless national warnings.
Like I mentioned earlier, this was basically a survival guide, and Washington gave us 3 main pillars to keep the nation secure. We've got guarding national unity, cherishing public credit, so taking care of the finances, and exercising some serious caution when it comes to foreign alliances. He knew for sure that if America messed up in these 3 areas, the whole grand experiment of democracy, it could totally collapse.
Let's look at that first one, unity versus faction. Washington kind of accepted that political groups could be useful for organizing ideas, but he threw up a massive red flag about intense party spirit. When political factions get fueled by anger, passion, or revenge, they literally tear citizens apart into hostile camps. And when we're busy fighting each other, it's nearly impossible to solve real problems. Worse, it leaves the door wide open for foreign enemies to step in and manipulate us. Basically, unity is our best shield.
Warning number 2 is all about the money. He urged the nation to cherish public credit. Now think of public credit kind of like a trap. If we aren't smart with our national finances right now, meaning paying our debts honestly and avoiding borrowing money we don't really need, we end up trapping our kids and their kids under this crushing weight of interest. A nation buried in debt? That's not a truly free nation at all.
Then we have his third warning, which is super famous. He told the country to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world. This is such a brilliant snapshot of his philosophy. Now let's be clear. He wasn't saying America should just hide under a rock and isolate itself completely. Instead, he wanted flexible, honest relations that protected our independence. He just didn't want us tangled up in permanent webs that would drag us into other people's wars and compromise our own judgment.
Which brings us to Section 3, analyzing the primary source. So when you're looking at historical texts, you really can't just skim them. You've got to bring out the historian's toolkit. Step 1 is sourcing. Getting a group on who the author is, the date, which is 1796 here, and that fatherly purpose we talked about. Step 2 is close reading. This is where you dig into the actual words to spot his specific arguments about things like factions and debt. And step 3, which is absolutely critical, is corroboration. That just means checking his words against the actual historical events of the time to make sure we're seeing the whole picture.
And here is what corroboration looks like in action. We can connect his advice straight back to things you probably already studied. For example, when Washington talks about maintaining order under the law instead of using violence, he's directly referencing the Whiskey Rebellion, which he literally had to go put down. Or when he talks about paying debts honestly, that perfectly lines up with Alexander Hamilton's financial plan. So this document isn't just a bunch of nice-sounding theories. It's a direct response to Washington's actual lived experience as president.
Moving right along to Section 4, Biblical Virtues in Action.
You see, history isn't just this dry collection of cold facts and dates. It's so deeply tied to character and human behavior. Washington's constant push for unity actually perfectly mirrors Scripture. Take Romans 14:19, which tells us, "Let us pursue what makes for peace and for mutual upbuilding." It's just like how we're told peacemakers are blessed. Washington fundamentally understood that a thriving republic needs citizens who actively choose godly character, people who want to build each other up rather than tearing each other apart over politics.
Okay, so what does this mean for us today? Washington called for unity, self-restraint, and honesty. My challenge to you this week is to actually practice these virtues in your own life. Let's take that historical wisdom and turn it into action. Be a peacemaker when you're arguing with a friend. Keep your promises, whether they're about money or just showing up when you said you would. Practice a little self-restraint and use your voice to build people up, not knock them down. Because at the end of the day, freedom only stays strong when we choose character.
And that brings us to our final section, number 5, education powered by morality.
At the heart of the HeroesMart Academy Godly Learner series is this really profound idea. Education without morality will hurt. Think about it for a second. What is the point of being super smart, memorizing a ton of facts, and being highly educated if you just keep making bad choices that cause pain for yourself and everyone around you? True education, the kind that builds a solid person and a solid nation, it absolutely has to be tied together with biblical morality.
And the ultimate goal of getting that moral education is captured perfectly in Romans 8, verses 6 through 7. That passage promises incredible peace of mind to anyone who keeps their mind focused on spiritual things. When we study history, when we learn how the world works, doing it with a spiritually grounded moral mindset is what actually leads to real understanding and lasting peace. Honestly, that's the whole point of our learning journey here together.
So, I want to leave you with one final thought. As you wrap up your homework and as you digest Washington's warnings about unity, debt, and character, ask yourself this: how are you going to apply this spiritual mindset and this timeless wisdom to your own life today? How will you use this knowledge to become a better person, foster peace, and build a much stronger future for yourself and your community? It's something to really chew on. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll catch you next time.